I get a phone call and say, "You need to check on your son. I think he just got shot." Once they came in and told me that my son didn't make it, that was it for me. I just broke down crying like I just couldn't stop.
The aunt brought forward the Facebook Live video showing that these are the two people that need to be looked at as far as killing her nephew.
Hey, look, this how many people I done shot at, bro. Look, this how many, look, I done shot so many people. Real talk, ho. We shooting grannies, cousins, uncles, all that, bitch.
She was claiming to be his Bonnie and calling him her Clyde.
I wasn't even trying to kill him. I didn't even know he was dead until she showed me.
He was like, we in this together, you ain't going nowhere, you can't never leave my side.
Why y'all posting all this stuff on Facebook?
You talking about like why he posting saying we did?
Yeah.
I don't know, Hakeem is crazy.
My name is Hakeem Griffin White. I have a lot of regrets, like, I wish I could just take it all back.
My name is Ashley Coleman.
And with this show, what do you want us to say under your name?
Victim.
It's 2:40 p.m. on March 2nd, 2017. In the Oak Cliff neighborhood of Dallas, Texas, a flurry of calls flood 911 dispatchers.
Dallas 911.
Hi, someone just got shot in front of me.
Yeah, he shot. I can see blood coming from him.
Where is the person at, sir?
He's right here. He's in the street. I'll find you in Sanitation.
Shots fired in Oak Cliff are definitely not uncommon. It's something that, unfortunately, residents in that area probably see or hear every day.
The Oak Cliff area is poverty-stricken. Gangs, different things, killings every day. You can say it's like any other hood or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
As a crowd gathers around the victim, a bystander pulls out their phone and starts recording.
Don't move. They say don't move, man.
Y'all know who shot him?
No, he moving himself, though. Just breathe, baby. Just take it slow, baby. Try to get up.
Okay, I got somebody on the way.
All right.
When first responders arrived, they saw a young man in the street who had collapsed. He had been shot in broad daylight. He was in pretty bad shape. He had already lost a lot of blood.
The recording continues as EMTs fight to save the victim's life. As he's rushed to the hospital, the video is shared online, where he's identified as 19-year-old Drake Keyston Alex. The news quickly spreads throughout the community, including to Drake Keyston's mother a few miles away.
I get a phone call and say, "You need to check on your son. I think he just got shot." And instantly, whatever I was doing, I stopped. I jump in the car. As I'm driving, I get a video online. It was him on a stretcher, and his head was just, hanging from the stretcher. So I was like, Lord, I just started praying extra hard that he'd be okay.
He was shot in the left hip, and a major artery was hit and severed with that one shot. He had actually lost a lot of blood, and so he was dead on arrival by the time that his body made it to the hospital.
I headed to the hospital. Once they came in and told me that my son didn't make it, that was it for me. I just fall down to my knees because I knew my baby had been gone. And I just broke down crying like I just couldn't stop. To have to deal with that was the worst day of my life.
To his large and loving family, Dre Keyston Alex always held the title of entertainer.
It was never a dull moment with him. You can be having a bad day, and he coming in and he's gonna do something funny to where, you forget about what you was mad about. He was that type of person.
During high school, Dre's talent soared as a standout football player and a budding performer.
Dre was a great athlete, musically inclined, wanted to be a rapper.
He most definitely wanted to be a rapper. I didn't know half of the stuff they were saying. I enjoyed it. If that was what he wanted to do, that was what he wanted to do. I was gonna support him.
With an athletic build and an outgoing personality, Dre was also popular with the ladies.
It was a smile for them. At least that's what he said. At least that's what he said, but he's most definitely a charming little fella.
A romance with Dre's high school sweetheart Taz paved the way to fatherhood for Dre in 2016. Less than a year later, Dre discovered they'd soon be welcoming a second child, but his relationship with Taz didn't last.
He was just going along in life, trying to be a successful parent, and Dre had a baby on the way. He was simply a young man trying to make it and trying to be there for his children.
He was a great father. He loved fatherhood. The little time that he did get, he loved it.
But just weeks before the birth of his second child, Dre's life is suddenly cut short when he's gunned down in the street by an unknown assailant on March 2nd, 2017.
I never pictured myself not making more memories with my child. I just couldn't believe it.
Within an hour of the shooting, Dallas detectives arrive on the scene.
In the totality of scenes that I've seen, this was actually a very minimal scene as far as evidence. We found 2 spent casings and 1 live one. So we were figuring 2 rounds shot, but we knew he was only hit once.
I don't know if the gun was perhaps jammed or what the problem is, and that could have been why the live round was there.
The main thing we know is, we need to collect those casings, and then we know what caliber weapon we're looking for. By the time we got there, there was only 1 or 2 witnesses. And then beyond that, there were some people that heard things, but nobody that really saw anything.
People, obviously, they heard the shots, but people are afraid to talk because when people are brazen to do something like that in broad daylight, what are they gonna do to you? They don't want to be the next victim.
It did seem like he was kind of at the wrong place at the wrong time. With somebody having it out for him, though, he was the target. But over what?
Coming up, detectives uncover complicated relationships in their victim's life.
When they showed me who he was, I was like, wait a minute. I know him. Like, I know him personally. I know this kid. I never even knew no animosity was between them two.
And a toxic romance will soon take center stage.
They both glorified negativity. And they were each other's hype man. They were hyping each other up.
Are they gonna go real Bonnie and Clyde and actually, not go down without a fight?
Dallas police detectives are searching for evidence that may lead them to a suspect in the shooting death of 19-year-old Dre Keyston Alex.
Because it was in the street, kind of near a shopping center and some other businesses, we were looking for cameras that would capture images of the offense.
While officers make their rounds to nearby establishments asking for footage that may have captured the shooting, detectives travel to the hospital to gather more information about Dre Keyston from his family members.
I got more background information from the family, which is really significant because it's what we call victimology, and it helps us have a baseline of where to start in an investigation. Dre's mother, she really wasn't able to communicate with me very much. It was just highly emotionally charged state, which I can't even imagine, losing a child. Her sister is the one that communicated with me.
Dre's aunt informs detectives that Dre had been on the way to see his former girlfriend Taz just before the shooting occurred.
I actually had talked to him earlier. He was with his sister. She was dropping him off.
Dre's sister says she dropped him off at a store on Sunnyvale, but insists there was nothing about the drop-off that led her to believe he was in any kind of trouble.
While I was at the hospital, there was also a girlfriend of Dre's named Ebony who was there, which is a different person from this other woman, Taz.
She said she was actually on the phone with the victim at the time of the shooting.
So he was going to see Taz, is my understanding, but Ebony's on the phone with him.
Romantic relationships, we look at those, we need to address it to figure out any possible animosity.
So I talked to Ebony. She showed me her phone log to show me what times they were on the phone. She stayed on the phone with him for about 4 minutes, and he did tell her on the phone where he was at. She heard him talking to some unknown person, and they were arguing, and it was a male voice.
Soon after that, she heard the gunshot, and then he went on the phone.
The phone hung up. She didn't know who he was arguing with, but that's the last time she heard from him.
When asked if she's aware that Dre was on his way to visit Taz at the time of his death, Ebony assures detectives that she was aware of their planned meeting.
Nobody had said anything about any hostility necessarily between family members or ex-girlfriends.
So you kind of go down the list of finding out what's your alibi, where were you that day, and then how can I prove that?
Before detectives can confirm Ebony's alibi, they get word that crucial evidence from the scene has just come in.
There were several businesses with cameras, so fortunately there was a camera right there that recorded everything. Having a complete picture is huge in any investigation.
The footage is really important. First of all, it shows the entire shooting, which is critical because it lays out for us how it happened.
It showed suspect pulling up, showed that there was a driver, showed that the shooter was the passenger. The passenger approached Dre as he's walking across the street.
Someone approaches him and apparently starts an argument.
The suspect pulled the gun out. You can see Dre then run off, and then you see the shooter even take time and aim for the follow-up shot. And then after the shooting, the driver waits for the shooter to get back into the vehicle, and then they leave together.
The driver appeared to be a black female, and we could tell the color of the clothing.
She had a beanie on with a little puffball on top. The shooter appeared to be a male, as you could tell, very thin build.
They couldn't identify the shooter, but they were able to see specific details about the getaway vehicle.
The surveillance video captured the red PT Cruiser, which is not like a really common car to have, and they kind of stand out.
Detectives are unable to read the license plate, so they turn to the public for help.
They were able to do some freeze frames of the footage for that vehicle and put it out in media, trying to get people to call in if they knew or had seen that particular vehicle.
This vehicle and the people inside of it are the suspects in this murder.
Detectives have uncovered surveillance footage of the exact moment 19-year-old Drakeiston Alex was gunned down in Dallas, Texas, and of two suspects fleeing the crime scene.
This was a distinct vehicle, you know, this reddish, maroonish PT Cruiser.
Whenever you have a vehicle like so specific like that, it really is a gift because there's only so many. And so I started going through every single report to look if they live in that area. Is there a black female driver or registered owner perhaps? Like anything I can find that can tie me into the right direction.
Meanwhile, Dre's family discovers a crucial piece of evidence and immediately contacts detectives.
There was a social media video that was floating around.
The aunt brought forward the Facebook Live video showing that these are the two people that I think need to be looked at as far as killing her nephew.
Hey, look, this how many people I done shot at, bro. Look, this how many, look, I done shot so many people.
They were bragging about what they were gonna do. They were gonna do a shooting. And they didn't say who they were gonna shoot specifically.
Real talk, ho. We shooting grannies, cousins, uncles, all that, bitch.
The timestamp of this video is right before the shooting. Everything's just falling into place. The clothing matches what we see on the video of the offense. The vehicle, we believe that's the same vehicle. The interior matches what the inside of a PT Cruiser would be. There they are with the gun, and they're talking about, we're gonna go out and we're gonna kill people.
While Dre's family can't identify the woman in the video, they tell detectives that the man is 17-year-old Hakeem Griffin White.
When they showed me who he was, I was like, wait a minute. I know him. Like, I know him personally. I know this kid.
Growing up in Dallas's Oak Cliff neighborhood, Hakeem Griffin White was an introvert by nature.
Hakeem was real charming, but he was quiet for the most part. He was someone that you were okay with having around, meaning he doesn't come with drama.
I met him while he was young. He didn't talk too much, but every time I would see him, I would have conversations with him. He was a calm, just cool kid.
At a young age, Hakeem met Dre Keaston, and the two became fast friends.
They was always playing outside, football, running in the street, dancing, in the house playing the video game, waiting for me to finish cooking, watching movies. Like normal kids. Normal kids. We moved away and they went there, we went here. That's it. Well, now everybody is up in age, high school, doing their own thing. So I haven't seen them since, they was all young kids.
Detectives learned that Dre Keaston and Hakeem's friendship had deteriorated as teenagers.
I don't know the incident or what drama took place for them to not become friends. The only thing that I do remember is whenever Dre did come around, he was always trying to fight Hakeem.
You would have never known they were cool before that.
The rumor was that this was this long-standing beef, and that's kind of how these feuds sometimes linger. Someone's gonna retaliate until they're the bigger person or they're the winner. Hakeem fit the physical descriptions of the shooter, and now there's this video that was going around on Facebook.
Detectives are stunned as the video of Hakeem goes viral.
Social media has really changed the landscape of law enforcement. It can be very beneficial, but it's also another layer to dig through.
Searching social media, detectives identify the woman in the video as a local Dallas rapper named Mommy Cash.
Let me tell you about the style hoe. Think she really poppin', but she not though.
When we start going through social media, we start looking for other things through some of your posts, maybe somebody else's post to your page. There were quite a few people that knew her as Ashley. Fortunately, there are references to her birthday on there. We were able to take the name Ashley and cross-reference that with the birthday and came up with her true name of Ashley Coleman.
The interesting thing I found out about Ashley is that she was 27 She was quite a bit older than Hakeem, who was 17. There was kind of a sense of like, okay, they've already done this in broad daylight. They weren't wearing masks when they did it. The vehicle's on video. Are they gonna go real Bonnie and Clyde and actually like not go down without a fight?
Hours into the murder investigation of Drakeist and Alex, detectives in Dallas, Texas are searching for two suspects after a viral video appears to show a local rapper named Ashley Coleman and Drakeiston's former friend, Hakeem Griffin White, making threats moments before the shooting.
It all started coming together. We found out Ashley has a red PT Cruiser. And at that point, it's almost too good to be true that you have video, you have her as a registered owner, and they fit the physical descriptions of the suspects.
Authorities continue to monitor social media, searching for any clues as to where Ashley and Hakeem might be hiding out. To their surprise, they're both actively posting.
Ashley went on social media saying, that's not my car. My car looks different. And Hakeem was saying, that's not me. That's a different person. So they knew that they had been caught on camera.
They're trying to appeal to the masses that they're innocent. So they're gonna go back and try to undo the damage they've done.
Ashley is on social media lamenting that I'm not a killer. I just do that just for social media. I just do that for my persona, for my image.
Detectives escalate their efforts to locate Ashley and Hakeem.
We're doing research for places she might be staying. So we do surveillance, and the next day, we end up finding the PT Cruiser at another family member's house.
They see that the red PT Cruiser is there. And then this U-Haul truck pulls up. Then they see Ashley come out of the house.
Ashley's trying to move out. You know, she's hired someone in a U-Haul truck to move. And so she's saying she's innocent, but she's already on the lam, so to speak.
We still hadn't seen Hakeem at this point. We just saw the other individual in the U-Haul.
As authorities keep watch for Hakeem, Ashley suddenly gets in her PT Cruiser and drives away, followed by the moving truck.
So they follow her in this U-Haul.
But the U-Haul truck obstructs their view and they lose the car.
We end up losing the PT Cruiser just because it can move a little bit easier than the U-Haul, and we're able to stay on the U-Haul pretty well.
They pull the U-Haul over. When you pull over someone who's aiding and abetting a murder in their getaway, you of course, the natural thing is you think they're part of it as well.
But the driver insists he doesn't know Ashley or anything about where she might be headed. He claims he was hired by Ashley and an unidentified man the previous day.
He says they just picked me up at the shelter to help him move and drive this U-Haul. But while we're working on that, the surveillance team end up finding the PT Cruiser abandoned.
We got a runner. When someone flees, you lose evidence. You're going to lose cell phones, you're going to lose possibly the gun, you could lose the clothing they were wearing.
While the authorities put out a bolo for the couple, detectives continue monitoring their social media for any indications about where they may have fled.
Throughout the next few days, they're continuing to post things on their social medias.
She was claiming to be his Bonnie and calling him her Clyde. To have these individuals who were really just so hell-bent on being bad and on just putting images out there that were bad was jarring.
I look my old out there, he running my name, scanning my name. They tell me to shoot you in your leg.
After seeking leads for 3 days, police hit pay dirt on March 5th.
We have a really good surveillance team that's really good at staying on the trail and talking to snitches and things like that, and developing information about where people might be hiding. And they eventually find them in a hotel just outside of town. So we set up surveillance.
Dallas authorities are on the hunt for 27-year-old Ashley Coleman and 17-year-old Hakeem Griffin White as their primary suspects in the death of 19-year-old Dre Keyston Alex when they locate them in a Dallas area hotel.
We get the search warrant. We arrest Hakeem and Ashley.
They don't put up much of a fight when they're caught. They are apprehended with no combativeness. They are taken into custody.
For you to just take somebody's life and not have a care in the world, like, you don't need to be on the streets at all. It was a relief for me. You know, it was gonna bring my baby back. But to know that y'all have been gotten was a big relief for me.
Detectives bring Ashley in for questioning and begin learning more about the aspiring rapper.
Ready to get this over with?
My name is Ashley Coleman.
And with this show, what do you want us to say under your name? Like what your title is?
Victim.
Well, the victim.
Of course, defendant.
Ashley Ann Coleman had a rough start in life in the Oak Cliff neighborhood of Dallas, Texas.
My experiences as a child, not having enough, not having new shoes, not having clothes, my mom having to go to pantries and people having to donate stuff from the churches and stuff. It taught me that if somebody could do it for me and make our day and we not ever knew it, that I can do it for them.
Without the resources to provide for herself, Ashley's early attempts to help others often led to petty crimes.
I don't care if you're homeless, if you're needy, if you just don't have it right then. I would do whatever. I would steal that stuff. It's cold outside. They need gloves. They need beanies. They need socks. So if I knew it was a store down the street, I did what I did. It became habit.
In 2015, Ashley created her alter ego, Mommy Cash.
Mama Cash, she was dope. She was dope. And at that time, it wasn't that many female artists, so, you know, it was something different.
You Mommy Cash now. You Cash team.
My dreams and my goals with my music were to show like the kids from my neighborhood and every other neighborhood that's been down bad that like you can make it.
But success in the rap game proved to be harder than Ashley anticipated.
Women and trying to be in the industry is hard for us, you know. It's not easy trying to be something that nobody believes you can be.
Just when Ashley was starting to lose hope in her chosen career path, she met 17-year-old Hakeem Griffin White.
Hakeem was a fan. He followed Ashley on social media. He was in her DMs. He was someone who showed up to her performances.
Hakeem was very charming. He was sweet. He told me all the things I don't really hear. You know, you feel like you don't have something or not enough of something. And he made me feel like I had it all. I felt as if I had it and I could do anything. He would go with me to my shows, go with me to the studios, and it was different having someone around that could be there. He said he wouldn't let anything happen to me. You know, I felt safe and confident.
My name is Hakeem Griffin White. Me and Ashley had met through Facebook. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had seen her before already, like, cause she was doing her little music videos and things. So I already knew of her, so when I seen her, I was like, okay, she trying to do something in life. I learned in the industry, like, you have to have some type of, like, facade so people won't just attack you or something like that. Like, people want to see that gangster.
They both glorified negativity. You know, they were hyping each other up.
With the couple now in custody, detectives confront Ashley about Dre Keaston's murder, and she points the finger squarely at Hakeem.
I ain't shoot nobody. I didn't know what was going on. I can't control another person.
How y'all posting all this stuff on Facebook?
What? Like what?
Everything.
Oh, he posted it. That Hunter knew me. You talking about like why he posting saying what he did?
Yeah.
I don't know. Hakeem is crazy.
He's a charmer. Don't get on his bad side. Don't press that button. Don't poke. Don't ask too much. And the less you say, the better.
He was very abusive. I needed to get away from him, and I just didn't want his family or nobody to hurt my family.
The week of the murder, Hakeem started playing these games with me, threatening to call the police if I left. He started lashing out, having angry spells, acting crazy. I was scared. I feel like he gonna do something to, hurt me.
It wasn't none of that going on. Like, why would you be with somebody that's just gonna beat you up all the time? Like, that's not my character.
My mom, my sister tell me, you gotta turn him in. But I'm like looking at my mom like, it's not so simple.
You like, we in this together, you ain't going nowhere, you can't never leave my side.
None of that story really made sense based on, like, it's her social media that they're putting all this stuff on. Everything about her demeanor was just very manipulative throughout my entire interaction with her. She was ready to throw him under the bus as soon as she could.
If I would have known what I know now, man, think about Ashley, she's just a hard pill to swallow. The thing she was saying to me, I don't know why she's saying it about me, because that's just not me.
Coming up, Hakeem Griffin White recounts his side of the story.
Like, one day he was just like, I'm gonna get you. I'm you know what I'm saying? I'm terrified.
I just want to know why. What did he do that bad for you to take his life?
Under the pressure of police interrogation, Ashley Coleman tries to distance herself from the murder of Dre Keaston Alex, claiming her boyfriend and the alleged trigger man, Hakeem Griffin White, was actually her abuser.
He already had beat me up previously, so I was kind of scared.
I feel like she could have stopped it, but that never happened. Instead, it was like encouraging.
I never encouraged Hakeem to do anything. Everything that he's done willingly, knowingly, and because he wanted to.
In another interrogation room, Hakeem opens up to detectives about his and Ashley's social media personas and the video they created on the day Dre Keaston was shot.
I went live and I was just splashing on there, like acting hard. I ain't gonna even lie. Just to act hard for Facebook, bro. That's why. This the thing about that video. That video had to do with this man. Nowhere in that video it say this man's name. Nowhere. I ain't even was thinking about this dude ever until I seen him that day.
Hakeem tells us that they just rolled up on this guy that he's been having this several years long dispute with.
Like, well, we had a lot of little ups and downs. That's part of friendship with some people.
He said he had had this ongoing dispute with Dre for years. School stuff where they just, for whatever reason, they didn't get along, and it just, over the years, escalated.
Like, one day he was just like, I'm gonna get you. I'm you know what I'm saying? I'm terrified.
Hakeem claims the feud came to a head several months earlier when Dre Keyston threatened him outside a family member's house.
I just remember like him taking a gun out, and I was just sitting there looking up to a gun like, dang, like I'm really finna die right now. Like this stuff crazy. So long story short, some lady came out with her kids in the apartments, and she must have like looked our way. So as it being witnesses, he just ended up turning away. That right there was just like, dang, like it was just foul play. I wasn't digging it. I feel like my life was being just too much in danger. Like, I want this dude to stop messing with me, man.
Hakeem admits when he happened to see Dre Keyston on the morning of March 2nd, he took the opportunity to teach his former friend a lesson.
I ended up seeing Dre coming my way with his hands in his pants on the phone. So I was like, she don't know, dude. Ashley didn't know like the beef me and him had over all this time. So she don't really know what was going on. I just ended up reacting towards it like real fast. Like
I was just letting him know, like, bro, you ain't finna keep doing me like that, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ain't finna keep on trying to come for me, try to kill me.
My mental went to straight like just to scare him. I had shot. You know what I'm saying? It was like a quick shot. And then boom, I ended up taking out running towards the car. So when I hopped in the car, we burned out.
I wasn't even trying to kill him. I didn't even know he was dead until she showed me. I thought he was still alive.
Throughout the interrogation, Hakeem attempts to shield Ashley from any responsibility. Still, authorities charge both Hakeem Griffin White and Ashley Coleman with first-degree murder.
In Texas, we have the law of parties, which means that the driver and the shooter both go down for the same thing. It doesn't matter that you didn't pull the trigger. It doesn't matter that it wasn't your idea. If you played a role in that crime, you go down for that crime too.
I didn't understand why. You know, I felt like I was a victim myself, so why am I being charged with what he did, you know?
There definitely is a level of premeditation. In that Facebook Live video, you see Ashley and Hakeem in the car. They're holding up a gun, they're holding up a magazine, they're showing bullets. Kind of talking smack about what they're gonna do.
We've got this video, the clothing matches. This video, the weapon matches the casings that were recovered in the scene. All of it matched perfectly throughout the whole thing.
In March of 2019, 2 years after Dre's murder, Hakeem heads to trial.
Trial was really hard because you got people in this world doing very, very bad things, like, and I accidentally shot a person, like, this was really like accidental, so it was like how y'all just gonna do me like this?
When you have surveillance video, it's hard to argue self-defense. It's hard to argue something else when it's right there in front of you that you gunned down this person and you were doing it on purpose.
You shot him once. You tried to shoot him again, but your gun jammed. So your intention was most definitely to kill my son.
This was not an accident. This was a very intentional act.
Hakeem Griffin White is ultimately found guilty of first-degree murder and is sentenced to 75 years in prison.
I'm not gonna say I was satisfied, but I really think that you take a life, you get a life.
Worried she will face the same fate, Ashley decides to strike a deal with prosecutors. On September 24th, 2019, she pleads guilty to first-degree murder in exchange for a reduced 19-year prison sentence.
That hurt me to my core because why should she be able to get a plea deal and she just as guilty as he is? You know right from wrong. You knew what he was doing wasn't right. But I'm okay because y'all not out here. And you get to get punished for something that you did.
Unfortunately, someone lost their life as a result of their persona becoming bigger than the image that they were putting out. They chose to be realistic with it. They chose to show the world that it wasn't just what you saw on social media. They wanted to live it out, and they did.
I did love Hakeem because he needed love, and he wanted love, and I believe everybody should be loved. At the same time, it's what you did with my love that totally took me for a loop.
When I was hearing all this verbal abuse or physical abuse, like, I'm not abusive, like, that's just not me. I have a lot of regrets, like, even ever touching a gun, that's a regret. Dealing with Ashley, that's another regret. A lot of things in life that I just regret. I wish I could just take it all back.
Your parents can still come and see y'all. Y'all are able to talk. You're eating, you're living. Regardless if it's behind the boys or not, I have to go to a gravesite and talk.
It started on a night that seemed ordinary, the kind of night New York pretends is safe. Streetlights flickered in Harlem, casting long, shaky shadows on cracked sidewalks where trash bags leaned against rusted fire escapes. A girl vanished, swallowed by the city's chaos. Her name was Emily Santos, 17, small, bright-eyed, a smile that had stopped strangers mid-step. She left her apartment that evening with a promise to return in an hour, a promise that was never kept. The door slammed behind her, and then silence. The first calls came in after midnight. Her mother, frantic, dialing, pleading. Her father, pacing, muttering curses at the world. The neighbors whispered. The news crew called it mysterious disappearance in the paper the next morning. The cops called it runaway until proven otherwise. Emily's bedroom sat frozen, sheets rumpled, her diary open on the floor, pages fluttering as if the wind itself mourned her absence. That diary contained scribbles, fragments of teenage fears, crushes, secrets only she could understand. No one guessed the weight those pages would carry. The scene was cold. Officers arrived, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness, revealing nothing but the outline of a normal, lived-in apartment. No signs of forced entry. No struggle. No ransom note. Just an empty room where laughter had once bounced off the walls. Emily's shoes were by the door, socks slightly dirty from the walk home she never completed. A necklace she never took off lay tangled on the dresser, the silver chain catching the light like a warning. The detectives walked through the apartment, their eyes scanning, every detail recorded, every surface photographed. They talked in hushed tones because the city outside continued to hum, indifferent, unaware that a shadow had crept into one of its families. Neighbors remembered hearing the music from her stereo, a faint melody of pop songs that seemed to echo a life cut short. Some recalled the soft barking of the apartment dog, now whimpering, pacing. A friend claimed to have seen her that afternoon at a corner store, buying gum, humming, smiling at strangers as though she carried the world lightly on her shoulders. Another claimed to see a figure following her down the street, but details were hazy, memories blurred by the rush of everyday survival. The witnesses were too human, too imperfect, offering fragments of truth that fit into no clear narrative. Each account was a thread, dangling, waiting to be woven into a tapestry that never formed. The investigation began immediately. Police created a bulletin, plastered posters across subway stations, called in the K-9 unit. The scent trail led nowhere. The cameras on nearby street corners captured blurry silhouettes, faces indistinct. One frame showed a man in a dark coat following, but his face was obscured by shadows. Another showed a car parked too long, engine off, windows tinted, presence unexplained. Every lead ran cold. Every tip fizzled. The family held vigils. The community searched alleyways, corners, parks. The city was large, indifferent, and Emily was nowhere. The detectives spoke of abduction, sometimes with dread in their voices, sometimes with hollow professional detachment. They feared what they couldn't see, what the night had swallowed. Months turned to years. Emily's photo aged in newspapers, in police files, in the minds of her parents. Her parents, once hopeful, grew into ghosts of hope, living in the limbo between belief and despair. The police kept files, stacked high, labeled Cold Case 1995, Emily Santos. The city moved on, the streets forgot, the newspapers stopped printing updates. But in the shadows, the case remained alive, gnawing at those who remembered, haunting precincts where officers rotated, each new detective greeted by files that smelled of dust and unresolved grief. Then there were the anomalies, little threads that refused to die. A tip came from a caller who refused to give a name, whispered details about Emily that only someone close could know. They claimed she had been seen across the river in Jersey, walking with a tall man, his face hidden under a hat. Nothing concrete, nothing verifiable. Another tip pointed to a warehouse on the edge of Brooklyn, where strange activity was reported in the middle of the night. Police investigated, found nothing. Empty crates, empty rooms, the echo of footsteps that weren't theirs. Emily's presence was felt in absence, in whispers, in shadows that lingered too long in alleyways and parks. The family's grief transformed into obsession. Her mother, once soft-spoken, became relentless. Her father, stoic and silent, carried the weight of unanswered questions like a stone in his chest. They followed leads themselves, spoke to informants, studied reports, scoured records. Each lead ended in frustration, each hope in disappointment. And yet, through all the pain, the longing, the gnawing emptiness, a spark remained, a belief that Emily's story was not yet over. Detectives rotated on the case, each bringing new technology, new methods, new eyes. Fingerprints, DNA swabs, forensic breakthroughs. The city's criminal networks shifted, criminals moved, streets changed. Buildings that once held secrets were torn down, replaced by glass and steel. Yet every piece of evidence remained, cataloged, waiting like a message sent across decades, waiting for the right hand to read it. The city changed around the case, but the case did not change. Then came the strange coincidences. The man who reported seeing a girl matching Emily's description at a bus station, years later, far uptown. A taxi driver who remembered a girl fitting her description sitting quietly in the back seat, staring out the window, her face pale, eyes empty. But each sighting ended in ambiguity. They were ghosts, echoes of a life suspended, reminders that the city hides more than it reveals. Inside the precinct, whispers circulated, stories passed from detective to detective, each retelling growing more dramatic, more sinister. There was the rumor of a neighbor who always lingered too long, watching, waiting, a shadow in the doorway. There was the tale of a man who offered candy to children, a familiar presence in the neighborhood, disappearing when questions arose. None of these led anywhere solid, yet they added layers to the myth, layers to the fear, layers to the obsession that gripped those who sought the truth. Emily's belongings became artifacts of memory. Her diary, once ignored, was combed through line by line, analyzed for clues. Her backpack, still packed as if she intended to return, was preserved, fingerprints dusted, every zipper and strap examined. Police files cataloged every call, every lead, every anonymous tip. Every piece of paper was a thread in a web too vast to untangle. Every missing piece a reminder of the unknown, the unknowable. Years passed. Cold cases piled up around her disappearance. Each new officer who opened the folder felt the weight of time, felt the frustration of the past pressing down. Emily became a symbol of innocence lost, of justice delayed, of the city's ability to swallow its children whole. Community groups held memorials. Candlelight vigils flickered, shadows dancing on brick walls. Her face was on posters, T-shirts, websites. She became a collective memory, a ghost haunting the city. Then, on a rainy night 2 decades later, a new lead emerged. DNA technology had advanced. Old evidence was re-examined. A single hair, preserved carefully in evidence, yielded a profile. A match appeared in a national database. Unexpected, shocking, as though the past itself had reached forward to slap the present. Detectives scrambled. Files were opened, fingerprints compared, alibis checked. The city stirred. Headlines began to whisper the possibility of resolution. Years of frustration, grief, obsession, and unanswered questions converged on a single thread of hope. And still the city waited. Streets wet with rain, neon signs reflected in puddles, distant sirens wailing. Families walked unaware, couples argued, children played, oblivious to the silent storm swirling in the shadows. But for Emily's family, for the detectives who refused to let the case die, for those who had kept vigil through decades of uncertainty, the quiet anticipation was electric, almost unbearable. Each phone call, each note, each whisper could be the one that breaks the case wide open. The story of Emily Santos was no longer just about a missing girl. It was about the passage of time, the erosion of certainty, the haunting power of what we cannot know. It was about a city that forgets too easily and a family that cannot. Every photograph, every memory, every ghostly sighting became part of a narrative too large to contain in newspapers, too vivid to remain in police files. The city had become both accomplice and witness, indifferent yet unrelenting. And in the midst of it all, the question remained, what happened that night in 1995 when a girl stepped into the night and vanished, leaving only shadows in her wake? The case, cold for decades, had begun to stir, like embers beneath ash, threatening to ignite a fire that would illuminate the darkness, exposing truths that had long been hidden. The city seemed to hold its breath. Emily's family held theirs. And somewhere in the tangle of streets, alleys, and memories, the echoes of that night waited, poised to finally tell their story. The phone call came just after midnight, a tone that cut through the quiet like a knife. Detective Harris answered, coffee in hand, disbelief creeping into his chest before the words even registered. "We have a hit," the voice said, calm but urgent, the kind of calm that made your skin crawl. Harris stood frozen, the mug trembling slightly, coffee sloshing on his notes. 2 decades of dead ends, whispers, false sightings, and ghostly leads had led to this moment. He grabbed his coat, the rain outside hammering against the precinct windows, soaking the city in gray light that blurred lines between the past and the present. Somewhere, Emily's story was about to resurface. At the Santos apartment, her mother clutched a faded photograph, fingers trembling, eyes wide with hope she had not felt in years. Her father leaned against the wall, silent, as though speaking might shatter the fragile thread of possibility. The phone call that came moments later confirmed it. Someone in the national database had matched DNA from a preserved hair. A name, long obscured by shadows, emerged. A name that had been hidden in plain sight, that had haunted whispers of neighbors, murmurs of informants, and the fragmented memories of friends. And suddenly, 20 years of frustration condensed into a single, electrifying thread. Detectives raced through records, re-examining old evidence, photographs, witness statements, police logs. Each page turned felt like peeling back layers of the city itself, exposing streets and alleys that had long forgotten their secrets. There were photographs of Emily smiling in the corner store, shoes slightly scuffed, hair catching the light in a way that seemed almost otherworldly now. There were sketches of men seen nearby, vague, blurred by time, yet now examined with fresh eyes and modern technology. A pattern emerged, subtle but undeniable, a line connecting the shadows of the past to the pulse of the present. Forensic teams re-entered the old warehouse in Brooklyn, the place that had once yielded nothing. Their footsteps echoed in the hollow, empty rooms, the air damp with decay. Each crate overturned, each floorboard inspected, every corner illuminated by flashlights. Dust rose like ghosts from the floor, floating in the beams of light, disturbed by decades of neglect. Then, something unusual, a fragment of fabric, aged and fragile, tucked beneath a beam. Evidence overlooked for years, preserved in time, waiting for the moment when the city would remember its secrets. DNA swabs were taken, carefully packaged, sent to the lab. Meanwhile, investigators interviewed neighbors again, older now, memory clouded by years, yet something in their eyes shifted. A pause here, a catch in the throat there, as if the city itself remembered what they had long tried to forget. The bus driver who once saw Emily in the back seat decades ago was located, his hands shaking as he recounted the story again, more details emerging, details he had repressed, fearing they would bring danger. She wasn't alone, he said, voice breaking. There was someone watching, someone I couldn't see clearly, but I knew. I just knew she wasn't safe. His words hung in the air, thick, suffocating, proof that the past had never truly let go. The press caught wind immediately. Headlines splashed across the city like fire on paper. 1995 cold case may finally be solved. Family clings to hope after 20 years. DNA breakthrough shakes city. Reporters camped outside the Santos apartment. Microphones thrust forward, lights glaring through windows. The city, indifferent yet intrigued, leaned in. Social media didn't exist in 1995, but now, in 2015, the streets buzzed with virtual speculation, theories, accusations, and sympathy. The cold case, once buried, now demanded attention, demanding answers that had been denied for decades. Inside the precinct, tension was electric. Officers spoke in hurried whispers, checking alibis, tracking names, correlating movements. One lead pointed to a man with a history of minor offenses, someone who had always been just below the radar. Another suggested involvement from a transient figure, someone who disappeared into the city like smoke, leaving only vague recollections and a trail of uncertainty. Every angle was explored, no stone left unturned, because this case had become more than law enforcement. It had become a testament to persistence, to the refusal of a city to let innocence be forgotten. Meanwhile, Emily's friends were contacted. Their lives changed, scattered across states, decades of memory and trauma resurfacing like jagged glass. They recalled the last day they saw her. Laughter, a shared joke, a promise to meet again. One friend remembered a man loitering near the corner store, a shadow that had seemed unnatural even then, a presence that now carried sinister implications. Each recollection was cross-checked, pieced together into a mosaic of the night Emily vanished. The timeline began to take shape, jagged, horrifying, yet oddly precise. As the investigation intensified, the city seemed to respond. CCTV footage that had once been overlooked was now digitized, enhanced, analyzed frame by frame. Faces in the crowd blurred into clarity. Vehicles that had been anonymous were traced through registration databases. The investigators followed patterns, small discrepancies in stories, inconsistent sightings, and rumors that had once seemed irrelevant. Every detail became a puzzle piece, every shadow a clue, every silence a scream. Then came the moment of confrontation. The suspect, long hidden, unaware of how close the net had closed, was located in Queens. Surveillance footage confirmed movements. DNA matched conclusively. Detectives planned the approach with precision, the kind that comes from years of failure and relentless pursuit. The arrest was swift, quiet, and unyielding. No resistance, just the realization that the past had caught up, that the shadows of 2 decades could not hide forever. The news broke first on local radio, then television, then online. The city absorbed it like a shockwave. Cold case 1995 solved, Emily Santos' family to finally see justice. 20 years of mystery end in arrest. Reporters flooded the precinct, eager for sound bites, for human emotion, for the raw spectacle of a story decades in the making. And yet, amid the cameras and microphones, the weight of 2 decades pressed heavily on everyone present. It wasn't a celebration. It was relief tinged with sorrow, triumph shadowed by the cost of time lost. Emily's parents were notified before the press release. The mother wept openly, tears sliding down her face, hands clutching the detective's arm as if to anchor herself to reality. Her father's face remained stoic, but his eyes betrayed the storm within. Years of anger, fear, hope, and despair converged in a single glance. The detectives watched quietly, knowing that closure in the human sense was complicated, tangled with grief, and tempered by the knowledge that no amount of justice could restore the years stolen. Inside the city, whispers of the case circulated like wildfire. Neighbors remembered the day she vanished, the empty apartment, the dog pacing in confusion. The streets themselves seemed quieter, as if acknowledging that a piece of their history had finally been accounted for. Yet the shadows remained. Old alleys, abandoned buildings, corners of memory that had harbored uncertainty for decades still carried echoes of her absence. The city had witnessed her disappearance, had allowed it to linger, and now, in resolution, it bore the scars of neglect. Forensic teams revisited the scene with new eyes. The warehouse, the street corners, the apartment, each location cataloged, photographed, analyzed, and archived. Evidence that had once been dismissed as irrelevant suddenly gained context, revealed significance. The city's architecture, its alleys, its buildings, seemed to tell their own story, a story of secrecy, silence, and eventual revelation. Emily's presence, though absent, had left an indelible mark on the landscape, a ghostly footprint etched in time. The trial, when it came, was swift but intense. Witnesses recounted memories long buried, evidence presented with meticulous care. DNA, fingerprints, surveillance footage, each element a testament to the relentless pursuit of truth. The suspect, once invisible, now faced the weight of decades of law enforcement, public scrutiny, and moral accountability. The jury deliberated, absorbing a story that had unfolded over years, connecting fragments of lives, memories, and shadows. When the verdict finally came, it was a mixture of relief, grief, and the subtle recognition that justice, though delayed, had finally arrived. And yet, even as the case closed, the echoes persisted. The city, ever indifferent, carried on. Streets teemed with life. The sound of traffic, laughter, sirens, and footsteps weaving into a tapestry that had once swallowed a girl whole. Her parents, now older, bore the subtle scars of waiting, their grief transformed into cautious hope. Neighbors and friends reflected on the fragility of innocence, the persistence of memory, and the power of time to both obscure and reveal. Emily's story, though concluded legally, continued to ripple, a reminder that the past never fully releases its hold. The cold case, once a dormant wound, had been reopened, exhumed, and finally stitched closed. Yet the shadows that had hidden her, that had allowed the city to forget, remained in the minds of all who remembered. They were ghosts in alleyways, echoes in abandoned buildings, whispers on subway platforms. Emily Santos' life, though brief, had left an imprint, a haunting reminder of the fragility of safety and the relentless pursuit of justice. And somewhere in the city, in the spaces between streetlights and darkened windows, the memory of that night lingered, a pulse beneath the surface, a story told in the cadence of the city itself. Even after the verdict, the city hummed with a restless energy, the kind that felt alive yet indifferent, as if oblivious to the years of pain etched into its streets. Emily's name resurfaced in conversations among neighbors, whispered in cafes, spoken quietly in subway cars. People remembered her laugh, the way she had paused to help stray animals, the way she had carried a notebook filled with poetry and daydreams. The disappearance had become part of the city's hidden history, a wound stitched into the sidewalks and alleyways, yet invisible to those who had never looked closely. Now, with the case resolved, the city could not ignore it. Inside the precinct, Detective Harris stayed late, reviewing files that had haunted him for decades. The photographs, the witness statements, the original sketches, all told the same story he had once thought unsolvable. And yet, seeing them now, he realized the enormity of what had been accomplished. Years of dead ends, of anonymous tips, of frustration, of cold nights following leads that went nowhere, had culminated in justice. The hair swab, the forgotten warehouse evidence, the chance recall of a bus driver. Each piece of the puzzle had mattered. It was meticulous, exhausting, painstaking work, the kind that demanded obsession, resilience, and a refusal to surrender to time. The community had been changed irrevocably. Friends of Emily, some who had left New York, returned to witness the closure, to see the streets where memories lingered. They spoke of her as though she were still walking among them, recounting anecdotes, reliving the laughter, recalling the small acts of kindness she had performed. She deserved to come home, one whispered, voice trembling, eyes fixed on the pavement where she had last walked. The words were heavy, loaded with grief, but also with a sense of relief that after 20 years, the story had finally been acknowledged. Yet the shadows of the past did not vanish with the conviction. The dark corners of Harlem, the abandoned warehouses, the alleyways, all still carried whispers of the night she disappeared. Residents spoke of streetlights that flickered too often, of doors that creaked open with no one present, of the feeling that someone or something lingered just out of sight. These were not mere superstitions. They were the echoes of unresolved fear, the residue of a city that had once swallowed a child and allowed her absence to become invisible. The memory of Emily had seeped into the concrete, into the brick and mortar, into the rhythm of New York itself. Detectives revisited every witness, every detail, seeking to reconcile the present with the past. They questioned friends again, some with memories sharpened by the passage of time, others clouded by decades of uncertainty. One friend recalled a man who had always been near the corner store, a shadow among the shadows, someone who had never seemed threatening, but whose presence now carried ominous implications. Another mentioned a parked car, the same one she had been seen near on that fateful night, its windows dark, its identity long forgotten. Every recollection, every detail, was cross-referenced with a new evidence, creating a web of connections that had once seemed impossible to trace. At the warehouse, forensic teams retraced the suspect's movements. Dust disturbed by previous searches had settled, leaving faint imprints that told stories only careful eyes could read. The crates, the old machinery, the scattered debris, all became pieces of a narrative frozen in time. Fingerprints once overlooked now matched conclusively. The texture of the walls, the scratches along the beams, the faint residues on the floor, all whispered of presence, of actions long past, of choices that had once remained hidden. The warehouse was no longer an empty shell. It was a testament to persistence, a silent witness that had waited decades to reveal the truth. Meanwhile, the city itself seemed to participate in the unfolding resolution. Rain-slicked streets reflected the glow of neon signs, the hum of traffic and sirens mingling with the memory of 2 decades of waiting. Passers-by, unaware of the full story, felt an uncanny weight, a sense that something monumental had shifted beneath the surface. The story of Emily Santos was no longer confined to precinct files or newspaper clippings. It had entered the city's consciousness, a reminder that even in the vastness of urban life, individual lives mattered, and their absence resonated. Inside the courtroom, the trial had been swift but intense, a culmination of meticulous investigation and meticulous legal strategy. Witnesses who had long buried their memories came forward, recounting details with clarity sharpened by years of reflection. The suspect's demeanor, once concealed, crumbled under the weight of evidence that had accumulated slowly, inexorably, like sediment forming a dam against denial. Each piece of forensic proof, each recollection, each document contributed to a portrait of truth that could not be denied. The jury listened, absorbed, witnessed the unraveling of decades of mystery. For Emily's family, the closure was bittersweet. Her mother, once consumed by grief, now found herself navigating a complex landscape of relief, sorrow, and memory. The father, who had carried the silence of lost years, experienced a release tempered by the recognition that no verdict could return the time stolen from them. They walked through her apartment, now a shrine to memory, touching items frozen in time, her school books, her diary, the small trinkets she had cherished. Each object told a story, each object a reminder that though justice had been served, life's interruptions could not be reversed. News outlets covered every detail. Headlines screamed, radio broadcasts replayed the facts, and social media amplified the narrative, connecting distant relatives, old friends, and strangers who had followed the case for years. Emily's face appeared on screens and pages, a reminder of innocence interrupted, of patience tested, of justice delayed, but ultimately realized. The city had witnessed tragedy, indifference, and perseverance, and in the end, had recognized the power of truth over time. Yet, even with resolution, the residual tension remained. Old colleagues of the detectives remembered nights spent combing streets, chasing phantoms, and reviewing every minor lead. They spoke of the frustration, the exhaustion, the obsession that had defined their careers. They spoke of the intangible fear that had lingered in empty buildings and dark alleys, a sense that a city that could swallow a life whole also required vigilance to prevent history from repeating itself. The cold case was no longer cold, but its memory remained an indelible imprint on all who had sought answers. Emily's friends, now adults, revisited the places where they had last seen her. They spoke softly, recounting details with precision, remembering the textures, the sounds, the smells of that night. Each memory, once fragmented, had been aligned with evidence, reconstructing the narrative with a clarity that had been impossible during the initial investigation. The bus driver who had seen her in the back seat decades ago recounted the moment again, voice shaking with emotion, as if releasing the weight he had carried for 20 years. The city itself seemed to acknowledge these recollections, the rhythm of footsteps, the squeal of brakes, the distant wail of sirens forming a subtle symphony in tribute to persistence and closure. Detective Harris, reviewing the final reports, felt a rare combination of satisfaction and lingering unease. Satisfaction that truth had prevailed, that the evidence had been pieced together with patience and rigor. Unease that the city could hide such darkness for so long, that lives could be disrupted, memories haunted, and innocence compromised, all beneath the hum of normalcy. He walked the streets Emily had once traversed, noting the shadows, the angles of light, the subtle distortions that had hidden truth for decades. The city, indifferent yet aware, carried forward, but he knew that the memory of one girl's disappearance had changed its very pulse. The forensic analysis had not only confirmed the suspect's involvement, but had revealed the meticulous planning, the cold calculation behind her disappearance. DNA samples cross-referenced with decades of records. Fingerprints matched against archives. Surveillance footage enhanced to clarity. It was a symphony of science and patience, a victory of diligence over time and obscurity. Each discovery reopened doors that had long been considered sealed, illuminating corners of the city that had remained hidden in the shadows of neglect. Emily's story became a case study in persistence, a testament to the need for vigilance, for meticulous attention to detail, for refusing to allow absence to become invisibility. The precinct held debriefings, sharing lessons learned, methods refined, and the subtle realization that even in a city as vast as New York, the threads of one life could weave through decades of history, leaving an indelible mark. Her family, though scarred, found solace in the acknowledgement that the truth, however delayed, had ultimately been revealed. The city moved on, as it always does, yet certain nights retained an uncanny weight. The sidewalks remembered her steps. The alleyways remembered the pause of her disappearance. The buildings remembered the long passage of time before revelation. Her friends, her family, and the detectives carried these memories forward, intertwined with their own lives, shaping decisions, perceptions, and interactions in subtle, profound ways. Emily Santos' life, though tragically interrupted, had forced the city to confront its shadows, its lapses, and its capacity for eventual justice. Even as the verdict was delivered and the city adjusted to the shockwave, there was an unshakable sense of unease that lingered in the air. The streets of Harlem, Brooklyn, and Queens seemed quieter at night, yet the shadows were longer, heavier. People whispered about the case in hushed tones, afraid of stirring memories that refused to fade. The apartment where Emily had vanished, now meticulously preserved by her parents, held the ghosts of countless unanswered questions. Her diary lay open, pages yellowed with age, still scribbled with the chaotic beauty of a 17-year-old mind. Words that once seemed trivial now carried a weight impossible to ignore. Fragments of dreams, fears, and intuition that might have hinted at what lay ahead. Detective Harris reviewed the evidence one final time. Walking through the precinct alone, lights dimmed, the hum of fluorescent bulbs filling the silence. The photographs, now framed and labeled, displayed the evolution of a city that had watched innocence disappear and then return, at least in part, to the light. The original sketches of suspects, once crude, now matched enhanced surveillance footage, the modern technology bridging decades of lost time. Every tiny inconsistency, every witness statement, every overlooked clue now formed a mosaic so complete that it was almost unimaginable that the city had allowed it to remain unresolved for so long. The Santos family's grief had transformed into a solemn resilience. Her mother, who had once spent nights wandering the streets, searching for a daughter she could not find, now channeled her energy into advocacy for missing children, sharing Emily's story at schools, community centers, and city council meetings. Her father, stoic yet visibly marked by the years, joined her, speaking to neighborhood watch groups, guiding younger parents through the delicate balance of vigilance and trust. Emily's absence had forged a new purpose, a relentless drive to prevent others from enduring the same limbo, the same agonizing uncertainty. The investigation had uncovered more than just the perpetrator. It revealed the city itself, a labyrinth of neglect and forgotten corners. Alleyways once deemed insignificant now appeared as silent witnesses, corners of streets where shadows had gathered like conspirators. Warehouse districts, previously overlooked in routine patrols, became focal points for understanding the networks that had allowed Emily to disappear. Every cracked sidewalk, every flickering streetlight, every unremarkable building seemed to hum with the memory of what had occurred, as if the city itself remembered and demanded acknowledgement. Witnesses who had remained silent for decades finally came forward. Some were motivated by guilt, others by a newfound understanding that justice, no matter how delayed, could be restored. A former neighbor recounted a figure who had always lingered in the distance, unnoticed yet persistent. A former coworker recalled a phone call, a cryptic message Emily had received weeks before she vanished. Each detail, previously dismissed, gained significance in light of the new evidence, reinforcing the painstaking truth that had finally emerged. The investigators meticulously recorded every word, understanding that even the faintest recollection could illuminate a path once obscured by time. The warehouse, the apartment, and the streets became subjects of forensic analysis that blurred the line between the past and present. Dust, fibers, and residues preserved for decades were now analyzed with cutting-edge technology, revealing subtle traces that had been invisible to investigators in 1995. Fingerprints that had lain dormant were cross-referenced with national databases. Digital enhancements of old photographs produced uncanny clarity, and long-forgotten documents yielded crucial information. Each discovery added depth to the narrative, filling in gaps that had haunted the city, the family, and the detectives for years. Emily's friends, now adults with lives altered by her disappearance, found closure not in the verdict alone, but in the acknowledgement that the past had finally been confronted. They spoke in interviews, wrote essays, and participated in documentaries that recounted her story with precision and emotion. Their memories, once fragmented and haunting, were now woven into a cohesive narrative that honored her life, her absence, and the relentless pursuit of justice. They recalled her laughter, her quiet moments of introspection, the small acts of kindness that had left an imprint on everyone who knew her. These recollections became a testament to the enduring presence of a girl who had vanished, but whose spirit had persisted in the hearts of many. The press coverage continued for weeks, the city captivated by a story that had spanned 2 decades. Television segments revisited the case, highlighting the technological breakthroughs, the meticulous detective work, and the resilience of Emily's family. Newspaper articles recounted the initial disappearance, the haunting years of uncertainty, and the eventual resolution. Social media platforms buzzed with discussions, memories, and speculation, creating a collective narrative that extended far beyond New York, reaching audiences who had never witnessed the initial tragedy. The story of Emily Santos had become more than a local mystery. It was now a symbol of patience, persistence, and the unyielding pursuit of truth. Despite the resolution, there remained a quiet tension in the precinct, a lingering awareness that the city's shadows were never truly empty. Detective Harris often walked the streets at night, retracing Emily's steps, observing the subtle changes in alleyways, street corners, and buildings that had once been integral to the case. The city's rhythm, the distant wail of sirens, the chatter of pedestrians, the occasional screech of subway brakes, carried echoes of past events, reminders that even in resolution, the memory of fear and uncertainty remained. He understood that the investigation had closed one chapter, but the city's consciousness retained the imprint of what had occurred, a silent witness to history, tragedy, and perseverance. Emily's belongings, preserved as artifacts of a life interrupted, were revisited with reverence. Her diary, carefully stored, was now analyzed not for clues but for insight into the person she had been. The hopes, fears, and dreams of a teenager whose life had been unjustly truncated. Schoolbooks, notebooks, photographs, and personal items became symbols of resilience, markers of memory, and touchstones for a family and community that had endured decades of uncertainty. Each item told a story, a narrative of life, loss, and ultimately, recognition. They served as reminders that even in the absence of physical presence, memory and legacy could sustain meaning, purpose, and emotional resonance. The forensic revelations also shed light on the meticulous planning of the perpetrator. Evidence indicated a calculated awareness of the city's routines, a knowledge of surveillance gaps, and a capacity to manipulate environments to evade detection. DNA, fingerprints, and other physical traces confirmed the involvement of the individual apprehended, yet also revealed the broader complexity of the crime, emphasizing the interplay between opportunity, intent, and the limitations of urban oversight. The resolution of the case underscored not only the triumph of investigative diligence, but also the persistent vulnerabilities inherent in a city as vast, complex, and densely populated as New York. The trial and subsequent conviction became a focal point for reflection, discussion, and education. Legal experts, journalists, and community organizers examined the case as an example of perseverance, innovation, and the evolving capabilities of forensic science. The narrative extended beyond courtroom proceedings, emphasizing the broader social, psychological, and ethical implications of unresolved disappearances. Emily's story, though personal and intimate, resonated on a societal scale, highlighting systemic gaps, the importance of vigilance, and the enduring necessity of compassion in the pursuit of justice. Even in daily life, the echoes of the case persisted. Streets once mundane seemed imbued with history. Buildings, once overlooked, were now regarded as markers of memory. Residents who had witnessed or heard about the initial disappearance carried a subtle awareness, a recognition that urban life was fraught with both visible and hidden narratives. Community engagement increased, with neighborhood watch programs, advocacy for missing persons, and educational initiatives emerging as direct outcomes of Emily's story. The city's consciousness, shaped by the interplay of tragedy and resolution, reflected a renewed commitment to accountability, vigilance, and the preservation of human life amidst urban complexity. As Emily's family gradually navigated the aftermath, they discovered that closure was multifaceted. Legal justice provided relief, yet emotional reconciliation required ongoing effort. Therapy sessions, support groups, and community engagement became tools for healing, enabling them to integrate the trauma into a broader narrative of resilience. Memories of Emily, her laughter, her curiosity, her kindness, were cherished alongside the acknowledgement of her absence, forming a duality of loss and remembrance. This delicate balance of grief and celebration became a defining aspect of their lives, illustrating the complexity of human emotion when confronted with both tragedy and justice. Detective Harris, reflecting on the entirety of the case, recognized the evolution of investigative methodology, the importance of persistence, and the profound human impact of resolution. From the first moments of Emily's disappearance, through decades of uncertainty, to the eventual breakthrough, the investigation had demonstrated the necessity of diligence, adaptability, and emotional intelligence in law enforcement. The case served as both a cautionary tale and a blueprint for future investigations, emphasizing that even the most intractable cold cases could yield to patience, technology, and unwavering commitment. Finally, the city itself seemed to exhale, the tension that had lingered for decades easing subtly but unmistakably. The streets, the buildings, and the community all bore the indelible mark of Emily's story, a story of absence, pursuit, and eventual justice. The narrative of the 1995 cold case, resolved after 20 years, became woven into the collective memory, a testament to the capacity for truth to emerge despite delay, to illuminate darkness, and to honor both loss and perseverance. Emily Santos, though gone, had left a legacy of resilience, a reminder that even in the vast, indifferent expanse of New York, one life mattered profoundly, shaping the city and its people long after the initial tragedy. Even as the verdict reverberated through the city, Emily's absence continued to echo in unexpected ways. Neighbors recounted old stories, recollections sharpened by hindsight. The corner store where she had laughed with friends, the subway station where she had boarded with a casual grace, the parks where she had wandered, all seemed imbued with a haunted resonance. The city that had once swallowed her presence now held her memory like a fragile flame, flickering yet unwavering. Detectives revisited old crime scenes, recalculating angles, retracing her final steps, connecting the seemingly mundane to the extraordinary. Each alleyway, each abandoned lot, each flickering streetlight revealed its own testimony of those long-past events, evidence both physical and emotional, preserved in urban memory. Emily's parents navigated a world reshaped by grief and closure, their identities intertwined with the persistence required to uncover truth. Her mother, whose nightly walks through empty streets had once been driven by desperation, now spoke to community groups, sharing lessons learned, urging vigilance, and highlighting the human toll of unresolved cases. Her father, quietly steadfast, became a source of wisdom for younger detectives and families alike, offering insight into patience, resilience, and the quiet power of perseverance. Together, they transformed personal tragedy into a catalyst for communal action, advocating for reform, resources, and remembrance. Their home, still arranged with the subtle presence of Emily's belongings, became a living memorial, a space where grief and hope coexisted, tangible yet ethereal. The precinct itself had undergone subtle transformation. Detectives, inspired by the painstaking success of the case, revisited cold files with renewed rigor. Archives, once dusty and forgotten, were combed through with methodical attention. Officers trained in new forensic techniques shared insights, cross-referencing decades-old evidence with cutting-edge technology. Fingerprints, fibers, and even the faintest chemical residues were reanalyzed, connecting seemingly unrelated incidents, revealing patterns invisible to investigators 20 years prior. Emily's case became a model, a benchmark, a testament to the potential of persistence over time and to the inexorable march of investigative innovation. Meanwhile, the city's collective consciousness shifted subtly. Stories of missing children and unsolved cases gained prominence, prompting civic discourse, educational initiatives, and legislative review. Community centers, inspired by the Santos family's advocacy, organized programs aimed at awareness, prevention, and engagement. Social workers, educators, and local officials spoke publicly about the human cost of unresolved disappearances, emphasizing both caution and hope. Emily's story, though singular, became emblematic of broader societal challenges, highlighting vulnerabilities, systemic gaps, and the enduring importance of vigilance, empathy, and action. The investigation also revealed the intricacy of the perpetrator's methods. Evidence showed careful observation, exploitation of urban blind spots, and a chilling understanding of human behavior. The perpetrator had navigated streets, alleys, and public spaces with calculated precision, manipulating visibility and perception to evade detection. DNA, fingerprints, and surveillance footage ultimately provided conclusive proof, but the meticulous orchestration underscored a sophistication that had once made resolution seem impossible. The case demonstrated both the vulnerability and resilience inherent in urban life, illustrating how persistence, technology, and human intuition can converge to counter even the most calculated crimes. Friends and acquaintances of Emily, long dispersed across the city and beyond, were reunited through the resolution of the case. Conversations once constrained by fragmented memories were now enriched with context, details, and shared reflection. They recounted the mundane yet meaningful moments that defined her life. Laughter in a crowded schoolyard, whispered secrets in the corner of a park, the quiet observation of daily life with a sensitivity that left an impression on everyone she encountered. These recollections formed a tapestry of remembrance, a vivid portrayal of a life truncated yet indelibly imprinted on those who had known her. The media's role in framing public perception was significant. Television broadcasts, newspapers, and online platforms recounted the details with emphasis on both the procedural triumph and the human element. Viewers were drawn into the narrative, reliving the tension, the uncertainty, and the eventual resolution. Headlines highlighted the meticulous detective work, the role of modern forensic science, and the emotional resonance for the family. The story transcended simple reportage, evolving into a cultural touchstone that invited reflection on justice, memory, and the enduring impact of human resilience. Within the precinct, internal debriefings examined the case with analytical precision. Officers discussed the efficacy of investigative strategies, the integration of modern technology with traditional methods, and the nuances of witness credibility over time. Lessons were codified, forming the basis for procedural refinements applicable to current and future investigations. Emily's case became a blueprint for cold case management, illustrating how patience, diligence, and attention to detail can ultimately overcome the obscurity imposed by time. It served as both a professional milestone and a cautionary tale, emphasizing that even decades-old mysteries can be solved when persistence intersects with innovation. Emily's belongings, preserved with care, were revisited not as evidence, but as anchors of memory. The diary, photographs, and personal items offered insight into her personality, her aspirations, and her worldview. Each page of her diary, once dismissed as adolescent musings, now resonated with poignancy, capturing moments of vulnerability, humor, and insight. Her friends and family interpreted these artifacts as living testimony, a narrative unbroken by absence. They served as tangible connections to a life that had been disrupted, yet was now acknowledged, celebrated, and memorialized. The city, in its own quiet manner, reflected the story's imprint. Streets, once traversed without awareness, now, bore an almost tactile memory of Emily's presence. Urban rhythms, the hum of traffic, the echo of footsteps on sidewalks, the distant wail of sirens, seemed charged with historical resonance. Even the faintest echoes of the past were felt in the cadence of everyday life, subtle reminders that human events, though ephemeral in the immediate, leave indelible marks upon environments, communities, and the collective consciousness. The trial and conviction reinforced the principle that time, while a formidable barrier, cannot indefinitely shield perpetrators from accountability. Witnesses were corroborated by evidence long overlooked. Digital enhancements clarified visual ambiguities, and forensic breakthroughs illuminated previously invisible truths. The judicial process, though delayed, validated decades of persistence and tenacity, offering a framework for understanding how cold cases can be approached, investigated, and resolved. The verdict was more than legal closure. It was a societal affirmation that justice, though delayed, remains attainable. Even in the post-trial period, reflection was ongoing. Detective Harris revisited the scenes of Emily's disappearance, retracing routes, observing sight lines, and analyzing spatial dynamics with a clarity born of both experience and emotional investment. Each location revealed subtle nuances previously unnoticed: a shadowed alcove, a reflective surface, a line of sight that had once concealed movement. The city's urban landscape, often taken for granted, emerged as an active participant in the narrative, its topology influencing the events of that night, shaping the investigation and bearing witness to decades of anticipation and resolution. Emily's friends, having endured years of ambiguity and fear, now engaged in acts of remembrance, storytelling, and advocacy. They contributed to documentary projects, participated in community initiatives, and shared experiences that highlighted both the fragility and resilience of human life. Their narratives emphasized that while Emily's absence had caused profound disruption, her memory served as a catalyst for awareness, education, and societal reflection. Through these acts, they ensured that her story and the lessons it imparted extended beyond legal closure into the broader sphere of cultural consciousness. The resolution of the case illuminated the intersection of technology, persistence, and human memory. DNA analysis, once rudimentary, now provided clarity. Digital enhancements transformed previously indistinct footage. Cross-referencing historical data yielded actionable insights. These methodologies, applied with rigor and ethical precision, exemplified the evolution of investigative practices. Emily's case, therefore, was not only a narrative of personal and familial perseverance, but also a study in the transformative potential of innovation within law enforcement and forensic science. Ultimately, Emily Santos' story, though tragic, became emblematic of the potential for justice to triumph over time and obscurity. Her life, abruptly interrupted, continued to resonate through her family, friends, and the city itself. The streets she once traversed, the corners she once paused at, the community she impacted, all carried an enduring echo of presence, memory, and resilience. The resolution of the 1995 cold case was both a conclusion and a reminder that even in vast urban landscapes, in the face of prolonged absence and uncertainty, truth can emerge, acknowledgement can occur, and justice, though delayed, can ultimately prevail. Even after the courtroom lights dimmed and the judge's gavel echoed across the city, the shadows of Emily Santos' story lingered in every corner she had ever known. Harlem's streets whispered of her presence, faintly, in the rhythm of footfalls on cracked sidewalks, in the swish of subway doors, in the flicker of neon that reflected off wet asphalt. The city, ever indifferent in its daily bustle, now bore the imprint of a life interrupted, a story that refused to fade. Detective Harris often walked those streets alone, replaying the chronology in his mind, retracing steps, examining every line of sight, every darkened alley, every flicker of light that had once concealed truth. He felt the city breathing, alive with memory, a participant in a narrative that had unfolded over 20 years. Emily's parents adapted to a new reality shaped by both closure and absence. Her mother, whose nights had once been spent walking aimlessly, searching for a daughter who had vanished without explanation, now engaged with the community, speaking to neighborhood groups, schools, and advocacy organizations about safety, vigilance, and hope. Her father, stoic yet profoundly changed by the relentless passage of time, guided young families, offering insight into patience, resilience, and the unwavering pursuit of truth. Their apartment remained a sanctuary of memory, filled with objects frozen in time. Her diary, school books, photographs, personal mementos. Each item told a story, a narrative of both presence and absence, of grief and eventual acknowledgement, of a life that, though disrupted, had left an indelible mark. Forensic analysis continued long after the arrest, revisiting old evidence with cutting-edge techniques that had matured over decades. Fingerprints, once deemed inconclusive, were matched against national databases. DNA, preserved meticulously from a strand of hair, provided definitive proof of identity and culpability. Surveillance footage, grainy and indistinct in 1995, was digitally enhanced to reveal subtle movements, expressions, and actions that had been invisible to investigators at the time. Even dust and residue in the warehouse, long thought irrelevant, told stories of presence, manipulation, and concealment. The city itself, through its buildings, streets, and alleys, had preserved a narrative that modern science was finally able to decipher. Emily's friends, long scattered across states, now found themselves reunited, their memories converging with renewed clarity. They recounted laughter in school hallways, whispered secrets in the park, the quiet observation of daily life with empathy and attentiveness. Each recollection, once fragmented, now formed a tapestry of remembrance. They described the last day they saw her, the small gestures, the moments of joy, and the eerie subtlety of her absence to come. These shared memories became acts of preservation, reinforcing the emotional impact of the case and highlighting the enduring human need to remember, reflect, and reconcile with past trauma. The press, captivated by the culmination of decades-long investigation, amplified the narrative across multiple platforms. Television broadcasts revisited the original disappearance, the failed leads, the frustrations of investigation, and the eventual breakthroughs made possible by perseverance and technological advancement. Newspaper headlines declared, 1995 cold case solved, justice after 20 years, family sees resolution at last, city confronts shadows of the past. Social media amplified the story, inviting commentary, reflection, and widespread recognition of both the tragedy and its resolution. Emily's story transcended local memory, becoming emblematic of the universal struggle between absence and accountability, despair and perseverance. In the precinct, officers reflected on the evolution of investigative strategy over decades. Cold case files, once gathering dust, were now actively examined, cross-referenced with modern databases, and analyzed with advanced forensic methodology. Lessons learned from Emily's case informed procedural improvements, highlighting the critical importance of persistence, meticulous documentation, and the integration of evolving scientific tools. Detective Harris, who had dedicated countless hours over the years, understood that the case had become more than a singular investigation. It was a demonstration of the transformative potential of patience, diligence, and ethical rigor in law enforcement. Yet, even with justice served, an underlying tension remained. The city's streets, though bustling with life, retained a memory of fear and absence. Alleyways, empty lots, and long-forgotten corners seemed to carry whispers of that night in 1995. Residents recalled flickering lights, unexplained sounds, and the faint impression of being watched, subtle reminders that urban spaces, vast and complex, can conceal both danger and history. Emily's disappearance, though resolved legally, had altered perceptions of security, trust, and the unseen layers of daily life. The collective memory of her absence served as both caution and tribute, an acknowledgement that even a single life can profoundly affect an entire cityscape. Her belongings, preserved with reverence, became tools of remembrance and reflection. Diaries, schoolwork, and photographs revealed glimpses of her personality, her humor, her fears, and her dreams. They offered insight into a life that had been truncated but was nonetheless impactful. Friends and family interpreted these artifacts as extensions of her presence, anchors of memory that connected past experiences to present understanding. The objects served as both emotional touchstones and symbols of resilience, encapsulating the delicate interplay between absence and memory, loss and acknowledgement. The investigation revealed the intricate planning behind the crime. Analysis of evidence indicated a methodical approach, careful observation of public spaces, exploitation of blind spots, and awareness of investigative limitations. Each finding reinforced the sophisticated, calculated nature of the perpetrator's actions, highlighting the intersection between opportunity, intent, and urban complexity. DNA evidence, fingerprint analysis, and surveillance confirmation ultimately secured the conviction, illustrating that even meticulously concealed crimes can be unraveled through persistence, precision, and technological advancement. Emily's friends, though forever shaped by uncertainty, engaged in acts of remembrance and advocacy. Documentaries, interviews, and community initiatives offered platforms to share their experiences, ensuring that Emily's story, while rooted in personal tragedy, would serve broader societal purposes. They emphasized the fragility of safety, the enduring power of collective vigilance, and the necessity of proactive engagement to prevent similar tragedies. Through storytelling, education, and communal involvement, her memory became a catalyst for awareness, reflection, and preventative action. The city itself seemed to participate in the resolution, subtly acknowledging both tragedy and triumph. Sidewalks, streets, and public spaces bore traces of history, retaining the memory of Emily's steps, pauses, and absence. Urban rhythms, the hum of traffic, the echo of distant sirens, the intermittent chatter of pedestrians, resonated with the collective memory of what had transpired. The interplay between human presence and urban environment created a living archive, one that documented both vulnerability and resilience, both grief and eventual justice. Even post-trial, Detective Harris returned to key locations, retracing Emily's last known movements with careful observation. He noted angles of visibility, reflective surfaces, and spatial relationships that had once concealed evidence. The city's geography, previously overlooked, revealed its role as an active participant in the narrative, shaping both opportunity and investigation. These reflections reinforce the understanding that urban landscapes are intertwined with human activity, capable of obscuring or revealing truth depending on the diligence, observation, and persistence of those seeking it. Emily's case exemplified the intersection of human memory, forensic science, and temporal perseverance. The resolution underscored that absence does not equate to invisibility and that even decades-old mysteries can yield to meticulous analysis, innovative technology, and relentless commitment. Lessons from the case informed subsequent investigative approaches, emphasizing that cold cases, while formidable, are not insurmountable. Time, when coupled with rigor, insight, and ethical vigilance, can transform uncertainty into clarity, absence into recognition, and despair into justice. For Emily's family, closure was complex and multifaceted. Legal resolution provided a framework of justice, but emotional reconciliation required ongoing reflection, discussion, and healing. Therapy, community engagement, and public advocacy offered avenues to process grief, integrate memory, and honor the life and absence of Emily. The balance between sorrow and relief, between loss and acknowledgement, became a defining aspect of their experience, highlighting the intricate dynamics of human resilience, attachment, and the pursuit of understanding after trauma. The community, too, evolved in response. Awareness campaigns, educational programs, and neighborhood initiatives emerged from the resonance of Emily's story. Local authorities and social organizations integrated lessons learned, emphasizing the necessity of proactive measures, early intervention, and the importance of community vigilance. Emily's absence, once a source of profound despair, now catalyzed awareness, preparedness, and a heightened sense of communal responsibility. The story became both a cautionary tale and a beacon of hope, illustrating how tragedy can inspire meaningful action and societal reflection. Ultimately, Emily Santos' narrative was both a testament to human resilience and a reminder of the impermanence of certainty. The city, though vast and complex, had witnessed the disruption, the investigation, and the eventual resolution of a life once lost to uncertainty. Streets, buildings, and public spaces bore the imprint of memory, evidence, and persistence. Friends, family, and investigators carried forward lessons, grief, and advocacy. Emily's presence, though physically absent, continued to shape perception, behavior, and the collective understanding of justice. The resolution of the 1995 cold case reaffirmed the power of persistence, the necessity of vigilance, and the enduring capacity for truth to emerge, even from shadows long thought impenetrable. Even after the gavel struck and the courtroom emptied, Emily Santos' story refused to leave the city's consciousness. Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens pulsed with life, yet the streets whispered of absence, of shadows, of a girl whose laughter had once filled parks, subways, and corner stores. Detective Harris walked those streets in the early hours, the hum of traffic mingling with the distant wail of sirens, replaying the chronology in his mind. Every intersection, every alley, every flicker of light carried memory, evidence, and history. The city itself seemed to breathe, alive with recollection, holding tightly to a narrative that spanned decades and demanded acknowledgement. Emily's parents, shaped by grief and tempered by closure, found themselves navigating a reality that was both fragile and resilient. Her mother, once wandering the streets at night in desperate search, now spoke publicly at schools, community centers, and city meetings, sharing lessons learned about vigilance, awareness, and hope. Her father, stoic and quietly observant, advised other families, guiding them through both the emotional terrain of loss and the procedural complexities of navigating law enforcement. Their apartment remained a sanctuary of memory, filled with objects frozen in time: her diary, photographs, school notebooks, and personal mementos. Each item was a story, a fragment of presence, a testament to life interrupted yet profoundly remembered. The precinct had changed in subtle yet significant ways. Detectives revisited cold files, combing through decades-old evidence with modern forensic techniques that had matured over the years. Fingerprints, once inconclusive, matched national databases. DNA preserved from hair and fabric confirmed identities and connected actions with certainty. Surveillance footage, grainy and indistinct in 1995, was digitally enhanced to reveal expressions, movements, and behaviors previously invisible. Even dust and residue, long thought irrelevant, told stories of presence, manipulation, and concealment. The urban landscape itself became a participant in narrative reconstruction, its streets, buildings, and alleyways preserving traces of truth waiting to be decoded. Emily's friends, long scattered by life, converged again, memories intersecting after years of fragmented recollection. They shared laughter, whispered secrets, and recalled subtle gestures that once seemed insignificant. The last day they saw her was reconstructed in minute detail. The play of light in her hair, the sound of her voice in the park, the fleeting look of curiosity in her eyes. Each memory, sharpened by time and reflection, media coverage amplified the resonance of the case, presenting the narrative across television, print, and online platforms. Stories recounted the initial disappearance, the long years of uncertainty, and the eventual breakthroughs achieved through forensic diligence, technological innovation, and tireless investigation. Headlines proclaimed, 1995 cold case solved, justice at last, family reunited with truth, 20 years of shadows illuminated. Social media, unimagined in 1995, buzzed with reflection, discussion, and acknowledgement, broadening the story's reach beyond local memory to create a shared societal reckoning. Emily's narrative transcended geography, becoming emblematic of persistence, justice, and the enduring human need for closure. Within the precinct, investigators reviewed strategies, methods, and lessons learned. Cold case files became active study material, illustrating the critical interplay of patience, diligence, and technological advancement. Detective Harris reflected on the evolution of investigative work, how traditional methods, careful documentation, and witness interviews complemented modern forensic breakthroughs. Emily's case was more than a solved crime. It was a demonstration of the transformative potential inherent in persistence, observation, and ethical rigor. The case became a template for handling cold cases, proving that even decades-old mysteries could be unraveled with focused, methodical attention. Even with justice secured, the city's streets retained a palpable tension. Alleyways, vacant lots, and neglected corners seemed to echo with memories of fear and absence. Residents recalled the flickering streetlights, the subtle sounds in quiet nights, the impression of unseen observers. Urban space itself bore witness to the events of 1995, preserving history in ways tangible yet invisible. Emily's disappearance, though resolved, continued to shape perceptions of security, awareness, and vigilance. The city had learned, in its own silent language, that even fleeting human presence could leave indelible marks upon the urban fabric, demanding acknowledgement and care. Emily's personal belongings, carefully preserved, became conduits of memory. Diaries, photographs, and mementos illuminated her character, revealing humor, insight, fear, and ambition. Each item offered a portal into her world, a bridge connecting past experience with present reflection. Friends and family interpreted these artifacts not merely as objects, but as active extensions of Emily's presence, providing emotional anchorage and continuity in the aftermath of tragedy. Through these artifacts, the narrative of her life was reconstructed, honoring both absence and influence. The forensic review revealed meticulous orchestration behind the crime. Analysis suggested deliberate observation, exploitation of spatial blind spots, and awareness of investigative limitations. Every move had been calculated, every action designed to avoid detection. DNA, fingerprints, and enhanced surveillance footage secured definitive proof, illustrating that even carefully concealed crimes can be unraveled by patience, diligence, and modern methodology. Emily's resolution underscored both the vulnerabilities and resiliency of urban environments, demonstrating how human action and persistence can intersect to restore justice, even after decades of concealment. Friends of Emily engaged in storytelling, advocacy, and educational initiatives, sharing experiences that highlighted both fragility and resilience. Documentaries, interviews, and community programs ensured that her story extended beyond personal memory into public awareness. These efforts emphasize the importance of vigilance, community engagement, and proactive intervention. Emily's narrative became a catalyst, inspiring reflection, action, and consciousness raising about the risks and responsibilities inherent in urban life. Her memory, far from static, energized social awareness and civic responsibility. The city itself, in its own silent cadence, reflected the weight of Emily's story. Sidewalks, streets, and public spaces carried traces of her presence. Footsteps remembered in rhythm, corners marked by pause, echoing memories that became part of the urban soundscape. Even ordinary sounds, traffic, distant sirens, pedestrian chatter, resonated with a subtle awareness of historical events. The interplay of memory and environment created a living archive, a cityscape that both preserved and narrated human experience, loss, and resolution. Post-trial, Detective Harris retraced key routes, re-examining sight lines, reflective surfaces, and spatial dynamics. The urban environment revealed its role in both concealment and resolution. Alleyways that had once obscured action now provided clarity in retrospect, illustrating the critical importance of spatial awareness, attention to environmental detail, and the interconnectedness of urban geography and criminal behavior. These reflections reaffirmed the principle that cities are active participants in human narrative, capable of both hiding and revealing truth. Emily's case exemplified the convergence of memory, forensic science, and human persistence. The resolution demonstrated that absence does not equate to invisibility, and that even decades-old mysteries can yield to meticulous analysis, technology, and ethical diligence. The case informed future investigative approaches, emphasizing the potential for resolution when persistence, insight, and innovation are applied rigorously. Emily's story highlighted the enduring capacity for truth to emerge, even when obscured by time, indifference, or urban complexity. For her family, closure was multifaceted. Legal resolution provided structure, but emotional reconciliation required ongoing reflection, community engagement, and personal processing. Therapy sessions, support networks, and advocacy work offered avenues for healing, allowing grief to coexist with remembrance and purpose. Memories of Emily, her laughter, curiosity, and kindness, were honored alongside acknowledgement of her absence, forming a dynamic interplay between sorrow, recognition, and resilience. The process illustrated the complexity of human emotion and adaptation following profound loss. The community, too, transformed. Awareness programs, educational initiatives, and neighborhood engagement were inspired by Emily's story. Local authorities and social organizations implemented preventive measures, emphasizing vigilance, reporting, and community cohesion. Emily's absence, once a source of despair, catalyzed structural and social change, reinforcing the importance of memory, advocacy, and proactive engagement. Her story became both a cautionary narrative and a beacon, illustrating how tragedy can inspire reflection, action, and collective responsibility. Ultimately, Emily Santos' life and story, though marked by disruption and tragedy, became emblematic of resilience, justice, and the enduring imprint of human presence. The city, vast and complex, had witnessed disruption, investigation, and resolution. Streets, buildings, and public spaces retained subtle traces of memory, evidence, and experience. Friends, family, and investigators carried forward lessons, grief, and advocacy. Emily's presence, though absent in life, continued to shape perception, behavior, and collective consciousness. The resolution of her 1995 cold case reaffirmed that persistence, diligence, and ethical commitment can restore clarity, illuminate truth, and honor both memory and justice, even when shadowed by decades of uncertainty. Even after the conviction, New York streets carried a weight that was both tangible and invisible. Sidewalks remembered her steps, the corners of parks retained the echo of her laughter, and subway stations hummed with the ghosts of fleeting glances. Detective Harris often walked alone at night, retracing Emily's final route, observing how shadows pooled in the alley she had once crossed, how the city's geometry could both conceal and reveal. The hum of traffic, the distant siren, even the rhythm of footsteps against cracked pavement seemed to tell a story of absence, vigilance, and eventual revelation. The city itself had become a witness, a participant, and a silent chronicler of her disappearance, her life, and her memory. Emily's parents, forever changed, found themselves inhabiting a world defined by duality, grief and closure, loss and acknowledgement, pain and resilience. Her mother, once consumed by desperate searches through the city's labyrinthine streets, now spoke publicly at schools, neighborhood meetings, and advocacy organizations, urging vigilance, awareness, and proactive intervention. Her father, quiet yet resolute, guided families navigating similar crises, offering insight into patience, the emotional toll of absence, and the slow but essential path toward justice. Their apartment remained a sanctum of memory, carefully preserving her diaries, photographs, schoolwork, and personal mementos. Each object, frozen in time, told a story of life, of fleeting moments, and of a presence that had been brutally interrupted but was never forgotten. The precinct underwent subtle but profound transformation. Officers revisited cold case files, combing through decades-old evidence with the benefit of modern forensic technology. Fingerprints previously deemed inconclusive were matched in national databases. DNA preserved from hair, fibers, and other trace evidence confirmed identities and actions beyond reasonable doubt. Grainy 1995 surveillance footage was enhanced, revealing subtle movements, facial expressions, and interactions that had once been invisible. Even the smallest residues of dust or debris in warehouses told stories of presence, manipulation, and concealment. The city's very architecture had preserved narrative clues, waiting for modern science and relentless persistence to unlock them. Emily's friends, long scattered by life, reunited through the prism of memory and investigation. Shared stories became acts of remembrance, laughter, and whispers of testimony to the enduring impact of her life. They recounted the last day they saw her with painstaking precision, the tilt of her head, the sparkle in her eyes, the subtle interactions that now carried ominous foreknowledge. These recollections, once fragmented, coalesced into a coherent mosaic of experience, offering both catharsis and communal validation. They ensured that Emily's presence, though absent physically, remained emotionally and socially tangible. Media coverage amplified the story, presenting the investigation's culmination across television, print, and online platforms. Viewers revisited the original disappearance, the frustration of dead ends, and the breakthroughs enabled by persistence and technological advancement. Headlines read, 1995 cold case solved, justice realized, family finally finds truth, shadows of 2 decades illuminated. Social media spread reflections, commentary, and emotional responses far beyond New York, creating a shared societal reckoning. Emily's story transcended local memory, becoming emblematic of the relentless pursuit of justice, the resilience of human spirit, and the enduring importance of acknowledgement. In the precinct, officers analyzed strategies and outcomes, documenting lessons learned. Cold case files became case studies, illustrating the interplay of persistence, methodology, and modern forensic science. Detective Harris reflected on the evolution of investigative work, observing how traditional techniques, witness interviews, documentation, and physical examination, combined with digital analysis, DNA profiling, and surveillance enhancement to reconstruct events long past. Emily's case served as both blueprint and inspiration, demonstrating that even the most elusive mysteries could be unraveled through diligence, patience, and unwavering commitment. Yet even with legal resolution, the city's streets retained a tension born of memory. Alleyways, empty lots, and neglected corners seemed to pulse with echoes of fear and absence. Residents recalled flickering lights, faint noises, and fleeting impressions of being watched, subtle reminders that urban spaces, complex and multi-layered, could conceal both danger and history. Emily's disappearance, though officially resolved, had transformed the city's perception of safety, visibility, and vigilance. The collective memory of her absence became a cautionary tale, reminding inhabitants that every life, however small it may seem, can leave an indelible mark on the urban fabric. Emily's personal belongings, preserved with reverence, became conduits of memory. Diaries, photographs, and mementos offered intimate glimpses into her personality, humor, fears, and aspirations. Each item provided a bridge connecting past to present, enabling friends and family to sustain her presence through narrative reflection, and ritual. The objects were living testaments, reinforcing the notion that memory can endure beyond physical absence, that life, though interrupted, continues to influence, teach, and resonate. The forensic review revealed a calculated orchestration behind her disappearance. Evidence indicated deliberate surveillance, exploitation of environmental blind spots, and an acute awareness of investigative limitations. Every action was executed with precision, designed to evade detection. DNA, fingerprints, and surveillance corroborated the perpetrator's culpability, demonstrating that meticulous crimes can still be unraveled through patience, ethical diligence, and technological advancement. Emily's resolution illuminated both human vulnerability and resilience, emphasizing the capacity for persistence, observation, and scientific innovation to restore justice. Emily's friends engaged in remembrance and advocacy, participating in documentaries, interviews, and educational initiatives. Their narratives highlighted both the fragility of human life and the power of collective memory, reinforcing the importance of community vigilance and proactive engagement. Emily's story became a vehicle for social awareness, emphasizing prevention, responsibility, and the need to safeguard others from similar tragedies. Her presence, though absent physically, energized communal consciousness and activism, ensuring that her narrative extended beyond personal grief into public significance. The city, in its own rhythm, reflected the weight of her story. Sidewalks, streets, and public spaces carried traces of her existence. Footsteps remembered in rhythm, pauses preserved in memory, echoes of absence embedded in urban soundscapes. Ordinary urban sounds, traffic, distant sirens, pedestrian chatter, resonated with subtle acknowledgement of past events. The interplay between human experience and environment created a living archive, an urban testimony of tragedy, persistence, and eventual resolution. After the trial, Detective Harris revisited critical locations, examining sight lines, reflective surfaces, and spatial relationships. The city's layout, once a complicating factor, now revealed its role in concealing and, eventually, revealing truth. Alleyways that had obscured events provided clarity in retrospect. These reflections emphasize the interconnection between urban geography and human behavior, illustrating the active role environments play in both the commission and resolution of crime. The city itself had been a witness, its structure silently participating in the narrative of disappearance, investigation, and justice. Emily's case exemplified the convergence of memory, technology, and human perseverance. Her disappearance and resolution demonstrated that absence does not equate to erasure, that even decades-old mysteries can yield to scrutiny, innovation, and relentless pursuit. Lessons drawn from the case informed investigative practices, highlighting the critical importance of persistence, ethical rigor, and integration of traditional and modern methods. Emily's story underscored the enduring capacity for truth to emerge, even from shadows long assumed impenetrable, illustrating the transformative potential of dedicated human endeavor. For her family, closure remained multifaceted. Legal justice offered structural recognition, yet emotional reconciliation demanded ongoing reflection, community engagement, and personal processing. Therapy, advocacy, and memorial rituals provided avenues for healing, allowing grief and memory to coexist. The family learned to navigate dual realities, the void left by her absence and the presence sustained through memory, advocacy, and acknowledgement. This process exemplified the nuanced dynamics of human resilience in the aftermath of trauma, demonstrating the capacity to integrate loss into a broader narrative of purpose and action. The community also evolved, inspired by Emily's story. Awareness campaigns, educational programs, and neighborhood initiatives emphasized vigilance, engagement, and preventive strategies. Local authorities and social organizations implemented protocols informed by lessons from her case. Emily's narrative, once a source of despair, catalyzed structural and social adaptation, reinforcing the importance of proactive awareness and collective responsibility. Her life and story became both a cautionary tale and a guiding force, illustrating how tragedy can prompt reflection, action, and social improvement. Ultimately, Emily Santos' story, though shaped by absence and tragedy, became emblematic of resilience, accountability, and the enduring impact of human presence. The city, vast and intricate, bore witness to her disappearance, the ensuing investigation, and eventual resolution. Streets, buildings, and public spaces retained traces of memory and experience. Friends, family, and investigators carried lessons forward, blending grief with advocacy, remembrance with action. Emily's presence, though invisible in life, continued to influence perception, behavior, and collective consciousness. The resolution of a 1995 cold case reaffirmed the power of persistence, ethical diligence, and truth, demonstrating that even after decades, justice can emerge, memory can endure, and lives can continue to resonate. Even with the trial concluded and the guilty verdict etched into history, the city carried Emily Santos' absence like a persistent echo. Manhattan streets pulsed with life, yet corners of Brooklyn, Harlem, and Queens seemed to hum with memory, shadowed by moments long past. Detective Harris walked alone in the pre-dawn hours, the distant hum of traffic blending with the faint echo of footsteps on cracked sidewalks, replaying the chronology of that night in 1995. Each alley, each flickering streetlight, each reflective window reminded him that the city itself had been both accomplice and witness, an urban landscape that had concealed truth while silently preserving fragments of it. Emily's parents navigated a delicate balance of grief and closure. Her mother, whose nights were once consumed by desperate searches, now stood before classrooms, community gatherings, and city councils, sharing lessons learned, advocating for awareness, and instilling vigilance in others. Her father, steadfast and quiet, guided families through the procedural maze of missing person cases, offering insight drawn from both suffering and persistence. Their apartment remained a sanctuary of memory, meticulously preserving Emily's diaries, school notebooks, photographs, and personal artifacts. Each object served as a story, a tether to a life interrupted, a testament to presence